Hello friends, how are you? I am sure that you must be enjoying the different topics of psychology. Today we will talk about perspectives on behavior. Actually, if you see the psychology, the whole psychology lies on the behavior. The word psychology was derived from a Latin word psychologia. That means psycho plus logi. When you say psycho means mind and logi means science, zoology, pathology, anthropology, similarly psychology. Now, psycho means mind, logi means science. That means psychology is the science which studies the mind. But in the science, we can observe the events, we can verify the events, we can measure the events. But can you see my mind? Can you observe my mind? Can you measure my mind? So the mind word was replaced by the word behavior, and this word was given by the Watson. Now that is why nowadays we don't say psychology is the science of mind. We say psychology is the science of the behavior. It is human as well as the animal behavior. So this behavior becomes very, very important. Now before I start elaborating the different perspectives, from where this concept behavior comes? The basic equation of behavior is R is equal to FSO. R means response, which is your behavior, F is the function, S is the stimulus, O is the organism. That means when stimulus and organism interact with each other, they give a response which becomes the behavior of the person. I am taking your offline class. I ask you to bring a glass of water for me. Now, demanding a glass of water, that is a stimulus for you. Now, your ears will hear the word sir wants. Sir wants a glass of water. This message will go to the brain, and what will be your response? You will say, sir, yes, I am bringing a glass of water for you. You may say, sir, why should I bring? It is none of my job. You ask the staff, he will bring a water for you. But whether you bring water for me or you don't bring water for me, this response will come when? When I demanded the water. So that was stimulus. Your action was organism. When both acted, you give a response, and that became the behavior. So now different psychologists, different schools, different views, how they explained the human behavior, that we are going to discuss today. So the topic of today is perspectives on the behavior. Now here is the scene from real life that happens over and over again. You are looking for something, a tie, a shirt, a book, and after a few minutes you give up and ask your room partner to help. Usually the first response is to tell us where to search. You are in the market, you want to purchase shirt, you want to purchase jeans, you want to purchase a tie, you want to purchase a pullover, sweater, jersey, whatever you want. You are searching, then you say no. Then you ask the partner, then from where do I search? When you do, however, you usually still don't find the object. At that point, your roommate joins the search. Within a few seconds, usually you find the object. You feel puzzled and fail to understand how the object was located because your earlier efforts had failed. The partner often comments that you didn't look very hard, with just touch of scarves in his voice. Now, when your room partner, your friend comes, you start searching, and then he said, this is okay, you say. Then you ask a question to your mind, then why I couldn't locate this thing earlier? Then he comments, sarcastically, that you didn't, try to search in a better manner, your behavior was not proper. So how would a psychologist interpret such events? How I will interpret this behavior? The answer is from any several different perspectives. In other words, it is possible to focus on these events from different viewpoints. Now, how I can respond to this question? I was not able to locate the things when I was searching individually. there must be something wrong in my behavior. When a friend, a roommate came to me, a friend came to me to assist, then I could do the job. Then why it happened? So this answer to this question is given by the psychologists in their own way. Now this becomes the perspectives of the behavior. Now the main perspectives of psychology means behavior. They are psychodynamic perspective we will talk about, behavioral perspective we will talk about, humanistic perspective we will talk about, cognitive perspective, and then the socio-cultural perspective. Now let us first start psychodynamic perspective. Sigmund Freud propounded the psychodynamic viewpoint. Freud's theory is still used by many professionals in therapy situation, and this therapy is known by the name psychoanalysis. Now I tell you, this psychodynamic perspective is the brainchild was given by Sigmund Freud, and he was not a psychologist. He was basically a doctor physician, but his contribution in psychology is so much that we consider him as one of the father of psychology. When psychodynamic came, when the Freud's view came, there was a revolution in the thinking of the psychologists. So Freud, on his basis, the basis of his concept, he propounded a therapy, a treatment which is known by the name psychoanalysis. What is that? What Freud talk about? We'll talk now here in detail. So basic here, psychodynamic tradition is given by Sigmund Freud, and the line of treatment which he suggested was named as psychoanalysis. It is far less common today than it was few decades ago. However, and even those who use this technique modified them for contemporary use. This technique was very popular when it came, but nowadays it is rarely used. Reason behind that is a time consuming. It's a time consuming, and people don't have the patience. Moreover, now many other techniques, cognitive therapy, behavior therapy, existential, so many therapies came. So, but historically it is important, and still at various places this technique is used. In more modern psychodynamic perspective, the focus still include the unconscious mind and its influence over conscious behavior and on early childhood experience, but with less of an emphasis on sex and sexual motivation and more emphasis on development of sense of self, social and interpersonal relationship, and the discovery of other motivations behind the person's behavior. Now I tell you, what is this psychodynamic psychoanalysis? They say, Freud says there are three types of the minds: conscious, subconscious and unconscious. Conscious mind is that mind where the things are readily available to you. You can recall whenever you want. When you recall them, the taste of mouth becomes very, very good. Very good. I feel proud. What incident happened to me? This is your conscious mind. Unconscious mind is that where you don't want to remember the events of your childhood, of your happened earlier. Some accident, some incident, misbehavior by someone. When you recall it, it gives you pain. So you want to forget. So you repel in the unconscious mind. So unconscious mind is the painful area. Conscious mind is the pleasure area. And subconscious mind is the mind where the experience is neither pleasure nor painful. General things happen. So if you just try, you put little bit effort, they will come to your conscious mind, that your subconscious mind. I am a teacher. I am teaching psychology from last 40 years. Now many of my students are IAS, ministers, MLAs, MPs. Many of my students are that. Now if I recall those names, when they meet me, they touch my feet. When I recall that, well, Mr. X minister in that government is my student, I feel proud. His name is in my conscious mind. I feel proud in the conscious mind. Somebody misbehaved me, let us suppose it, fortunately it didn't happen to me throughout my career. Suppose a student misbehaves with me. Now, I don't want to remember that incident. So, I will push that incident in my unconscious mind. There is a student, neither any pleasant experience, nor he has got any achievement, nor misbehaved with me, a normal student. Studied, went away. After 5-10 years, he meets me in the market. He says, "Good morning, sir, I was your student. You remember?" Then I put some effort in my mind. "Oh, you are Mr. Such. I taught you there." He is in my subconscious mind. So, that is why sometimes I say conscious mind is the drawing room of your house, where you put the pleasant, the goody things, and unconscious mind is the store of your house. In store, what you put, the events which you don't want, the things which you don't want to show to anybody, the experiences which I don't want to experience, I put in the unconscious mind. But the things which are in unconscious mind, they are with me. Whenever they will come, anywhere come to my mind, they will give me pain. So, bringing unconscious to conscious mind and resolving them is psychoanalysis. So, this school, interpreted behavior as the conscious mind and unconscious mind. They say whatever is in your unconscious mind, that is with you, that may disturb you, your behavior. So, you will have to get rid of it. So, this perspective is named as the psychodynamic perspective, and it was given by the Sigmund Freud. Now, we will talk about the second perspective, and that is the behavioral perspective. Behavioral perspective was propounded by Watson in 1913, and it is said that the second force in psychology, like modern psychodynamic perspective, behaviorism is still also very influential when its primary supporter John B. Watson moved on to greener pastures in the world of advertising. B.F. Skinner became the new leader of this field. Watson argues that psychology should focus not on the conscious or experiences, but on the behavior action that can be observed and the measured. Now, I told you in the beginning of this lecture that we are not now talking about the mind, we are talking about the behavior, because we can observe the behavior, we can measure the behavior, we can verify the behavior. This perspective was brought by the Watson. He says that we can measure the behavior, we can see the behavior, and your behavior is not governed by conscious and unconscious, it is governed by the environment. It is governed by the environment. Environment will shape your behavior. Whatever environment you get, you will behave like that. Once Watson said, he said, "Give me a child right from the birth, I will make him the way I want to make him." That means I will create that environment. So, this perspective is your behavioral, and it is called the second force in psychology. What was the first force? That was psychoanalysis, the psychodynamic. Because earlier we were thinking of behavior, abnormality in the supernatural powers, but Freud said no, it is unconscious mind and other things. So, that was the first force, and this was the second force, which didn't believe in the conscious unconscious mind, they believed in the environment, they believed in your behavior. Now, Watson gave this, and then he moved to another field, but B.F. Skinner and other authority, he took over, and he became the second leader of the behavioral perspective. As Watson put it, the behaviorists ask, why don't we make what we can observe the real field of psychology? Let us limit ourselves to the things that can be observed and formulate laws concerning only those things. What we can observe, that is important. What can we observe? We can observe the behavior, what the organism does or says. Now, you are able to observe my behavior. What is my body language? How I am speaking, how I am explaining, clear? It is nothing to do with the unconscious. You can observe. So, they say, we can observe the behavior, what the organism does or says. Many psychologists had already begun to lose interest in studied consciousness and introspection as a research. So, Watson's view quickly won general acceptance. Indeed, the idea that should focus only on the observable behavior dominate the field for the several years. You know, when this view came, the people who are believing in the introspection, I have talked in my earlier lecture introspection, then psychoanalysis, people start losing interest in that area and they started believing in the behavioral aspect. Why? Because behavior can be observed, behavior can be measured, behavior can be verified. Skinner, which I talked about, the second leader which emerged, B.F. Skinner. Skinner developed a theory called operant conditioning to explain how voluntary behavior is learned. In this theory, behavioral response that are followed by pleasurable consequence are strengthened or reinforced. For example, a child who cries and is rewarded by getting his mother's attention will cry again in future. What he says? He says, if you are doing a behavior and in response to that behavior, whatever the response you are getting, whatever the behavior the other person you are getting, if that is pleasure, that gives you a pleasure, that behavior is strengthened. Clear? So, you have learned that behavior because of the response of the other. A child starts crying. When the child starts crying, the mother rushes to the child. She takes the child, and then you sing some lori, some song and feeding him. And now when the child next time needs attention, he or the child, she will again cry and the mother shall again rush to the child. So, he has learned this behavior, that how I can call my mama, how I can my mother, how I can get or catch the attention of my mother. So, this view was given by the Skinner. Skinner's operant theory we will talk about sometime when we will talk about the laws of learning. In laws of learning, did an experiment which is known by the name operant conditioning or instrumental conditioning after the classical conditioning of the Pavlov. But here, since we are talking of the only perspectives, so we are only touching that what Skinner wants to say. The third perspective is your humanistic perspective. Humanistic approach is considered as third force in psychology. These perspectives were really a reaction to both psychoanalytic theory and behaviorism. I told you that first force was psychoanalysis, psychodynamic, the second force was your behaviorism, and third force is your humanistic humanism. And this approach, this perspectives is against the humanist, is the behavioristic and the psychoanalyst. They don't believe in the earlier two approaches, the perspectives which we have talked. In contrast to psychoanalytic force on sexual development and behaviorism focus in guiding the personality development, some professionals begin to develop a perspective that would allow to focus on people's ability to direct their own lives. They say you are the master of your own. What behaviorists say? They say you are the slave of environment. What environment will give, it will shape my behavior. So, I am dependent on the environment. What Freud says, your unconscious mind, I am slave of the unconscious mind. This view says no, you are the master of your own destiny. You can focus on people's, that I am repeating the line, focus on people's ability to direct their own lives. Clear? So, this view came as in the form of the humanistic perspective. Humanists hold the view that people have to have a free will. You have a free will. The freedom to choose their own destiny, which I talked about just now, and strive for self-actualization, that is the achievement of one's full potential. One of the propounders, one of the great person in this was Abraham Maslow. I will tell you, Abraham Maslow gave a need hierarchy theory. He says, behavior will be governed when you are, he says first your biological need, physiological, then he says safety, then he says need for belongingness, then he says need for self-esteem, and last he says the highest need is the self-actualization. So, humanists believe in the self-actualization. What is self-actualization? Self-actualization means using one's potentialities up to the maximum level. I am teaching you at the moment. I am trying my best to explain the concepts to the best of my ability. I am neither governed by the environment nor I am governed by the conscious unconscious. It is my potentiality that I will explain in the best manner which I can do. This I am to decide that how much effort or how much things I can put on. Two of the earliest and most famous founders of this view are Abraham Maslow 1908 to 1970 and Carl Rogers 1902 to 1987. This is the period. Today, humanism exists as a form of psychotherapy aimed at self-understanding and self-improvement. So, Abraham Maslow propounded it, Rogers another authority, and on the basis of this their perspective, again approach was developed, a therapy was developed which is called as the non-directive therapy. Freud, psychoanalysis therapy. Behaviorism, behavior therapy. They say client-centered therapy. The focus is the client. Client is to decide. You have to decide that what you want to do. So this view was known as your humanistic perspective. Now, the fourth perspective, which is now very popular, is the cognitive perspective. The ultimate challenge to the behaviorism and the narrow definition of psychology came from what psychologists often describe as the cognitive revolution, renewal of interest in all aspects of cognition. This revolution had been brewing for some time as psychologists quietly went about studying memory, reasoning, problem solving and other cognitive processes. By 1960, the development of computers provided such researchers with most new tools for conducting their research. For instance, computers made it possible to explore individuals to specific stimuli in a very precise manner and to measure the speed of reaction with great precisions. When revolution came, first revolution psychodynamic, when we were not thinking psychology even in the scientific term, then behavior, then humanist. Now scientifically developments went on. Computer, came before us. Number of tools, techniques. Now you have, your mobile, even mobile calculator is one of the very common things. When these things came, then we were able to measure the things accurately and, in a precise and in a refined manner. So this revolution came, which is known as cognitive revolution, and now on this name we have a cognitive, even an independent field of psychology, cognitive psychology. They say no, how you perceive, how you learn, how you your memory, how you reason, what your reasoning, how perception you are, what perception you are making, clear, and what is the method of your problem solving, whether you are solving problems by trial and error method, whether you are solving problem by just an idea insight or by the logical thinking. This all view, when it came, it became as the cognitive psychology, in which we started thinking of the cognitive aspects of the human behavior. Then came the socio-cultural perspective. It is again very important, socio-cultural perspective. Another modern perspective in psychology is the socio-cultural. It actually combines two areas of studies, and that is social psychology, which is the study of groups, social roles, role of social action and relationship, and then cultural psychology, which is study of the cultural norms, values and expectations. You see, what does this perspective means? Socio-cultural. After all, human being is a social animal. We are living in a particular culture. Will the norms of the culture, will the traditions of the culture will not affect my behavior? What is the answer? Yes or no? The answer is yes. My parents have taught me number of things. My culture is non-violence. I will learn non-violence. My culture is violence. I will learn violence. My culture is pessimism. I will be pessimistic. My culture is telling me optimism, I will be optimistic. My culture says cooperate with each other, don't compete, my behavior will be cooperative. My culture is competitive, no, there is a time of the competition, no cooperation, you have to see your own career, you will become competitive, you will not try to help your friend by giving him books or the notes, because culture has shaped. So, culture is very important in shaping our behavior. And then the socio-cultural, then this is the two angles, social and cultural, social psychology. Social means what? When I utter the word social, I mean more than one, because individual will be one and social will be more, and when there is more than one, it becomes a group, it becomes a group. So, that is why I said social psychology, which is the study of the groups, how you behave in the group, what the group dynamics, how the groups are formed, how many types of the groups, formal group, informal group, clear. Then social roles, my here as a, in this room, my role is as a teacher. I am playing the social role of a teacher. When I will talk to my son, I will play social role as a father. When I will talk to my grandson, my social role will be of a grandpapa, clear. And the role of the social action, how the relationship is formed, how attitude is formed, what is prejudice, this is all social. So, this perspective say social psychology, group behavior and your cultural angle, cultural perspective. These two areas are related in that way, they are both about the effect that people have on one another, either individually or in a large group such as cultural. The socio-cultural perspective is important because it reminds people that the way they and others behave is influenced not only by whether they are alone or with the friends in a crowd or part of a group, but also by the social norms, class difference and ethnic identity, concerns of the particular culture in which they live. You see, you might have observed, sometimes we see a person, I say, I can understand your behavior, you belong to that culture. What do you mean? You belong to that culture. That means I know the traditions and norms of the culture. Your culture is so sophisticated, your culture is so religious that you are behaving in that way. So, this perspective emphasizes on the two aspects, the group behavior, the social psychology and the cultural, and the combined approach is called socio-cultural perspective. Now, behavior was one. In the different angles, people tried to explain in different manner. One said unconscious mind. Then when we'll talk about the sometimes psychoanalysis, psychodynamic, they talk about the libido, the sex energy, ego, superego. Then when came the behavioral perspective, they talked about your environment. Then came the humanism, they said no, you are self-actualized. Be self-actualized, use your potential up to the maximum level. Then cognitive perspective came, they said the way of your thinking, the way of problem solving, what about your memory, how you are perceiving the things, that was cognitive. And last was the your social and cultural background. In this way, behavior can be understood in the from different angles. These are the viewpoints of the different schools of psychology. Now, which school we follow, we will adopt that psychotherapy or follow that method. So, this was about the perspectives on behavior.